Hi, this is Bobby Sanabria for Jazz at Lincoln Center. I'm here in this video segment to talk to you about this beautiful, majestic instrument that is the closest link that we have in popular music to West and Central Africa, the Conga drums. The Conga drums have a mighty, majestic history. They're rooted in Bantu Congolese culture in West and Central Africa. Of course, they were brought to the island of Cuba to the colonial period. Originally, they didn't look like this. They are based on a drum called ngoma from Bantu Congolese culture that's much larger. But then it started being refined and refined and refined, and with the fusion of African culture, West African and Central African culture in Cuba, with the culture of southern Spain, a hybrid drum came out of it, this drum, the Conga drum. The Cubans call this drum generally tumbadora. But over the years, the codification of the names of the drums gives the drums various sizes and various names. The largest drum in a choir of Conga drums that we have is the rebajador. It's a very low drum that's used in the Cuban carnival processions. It just keeps a downbeat throughout the rhythm. You might hear a Cuban carnival, a conga line coming down, and you would hear this. Okay. Next in line to that would be the tumbadora, which is the commercially available drum that's that you can buy in any store, any well-stocked music store. The tumbadora is the general name that most Cubans give to any type of conga drum. Outside of Cuba, we just call the drums congas because the conga dance was introduced by Desi Arnaz to the United States in the late 1930s, around 1938. And that was one of the first rhythms that people actually heard this drum being utilized. And so Americans started calling these drums Conga drums. But they do have specific names, as I said. This is a tumbadora, a large drum. Okay, it plays foundation rhythms. Next in line would be this drum, the Conga, which has many names. Tres golpes, tres dos, llamador, llamadora, segundo, segunda, etc., etc. But most people just call it a conga, okay? Then we would have a smaller drum known as the quinto, a quinto, which is a high-pitched drum that's used for soloing in various traditional forms of Afro-Cuban music, most notably the rumba tradition, which is what I opened up playing for you, the Havana style known as guaguancó. And then there's even a smaller conga drum called a requinto. That's a very high-pitched drum that's used as an even higher solo voice in the conga de comparsas. So again, the names of the drums, rebajador, the lowest, tumbadora, next in size. That's also known as a tumba, okay? Then we have the conga with its many names, as I said before. And we have the quinto, which is a solo drum, a high-pitched solo drum used by a soloist in various Afro-Cuban forms of folkloric music, and most notably the rumba tradition. And the requinto, which is the highest one, and that's used in the conga de comparsa. It's a very small drum. Usually it's about 9 inches, 9 3/4 inches in diameter. The quinto would be about 11 inches. The conga would be about 11 3/4. Tumbadora could be like 12 inches, 12 3/4. And then the rebajador is even larger, sometimes 13 inches, 12 1/2 inches or whatever. But most of the time what people do is just take a tumbadora and lower it in pitch when they need that drum in terms of the function of it in the conga de comparsa. What I'm going to show you are some basic half movements on the conga drum. You need 4 basic movements to get you to start playing. First movement is the palm. Okay, notice the sound. My fingers are up, my thumb is up. It's got a fat sound to the drum. I tilt the drum also. I cradle the drum between my legs. You notice I have these pedals with me. I'm just using them to assist me in giving you the aura of various percussionists playing and to give you some clave consciousness, which we'll talk about in a little while. Okay, so the palm again. So we tilt the drum slightly to a 45-degree angle if you're right-handed toward this tumbadora or tumba. The tip of the fingers notice that my fingers are closed and I form an L with my hands. Okay? Next sound is what we call golpe seco. Golpe seco. Golpe seco means dry stroke. It is the time-keeping slap that we used in what we call tumbao. It's a very important word. Tumbao, it comes from the Spanish word tumbar, which means to knock off or out. In the tumbaos, we play repetitive patterns on the conga drums, but not just only on the conga drums. The piano plays tumbaos. The bass plays tumbaos. If we have stringed instruments like the Cuban mandolin, the tres, the Cuban guitar that has 3 sets of double strings, that plays tumbaos. And if we have a guitar player, that guitar player plays tumbaos, repetitive rhythms. In fact, the word tumbao is used in everyday speak by habaneros, matanceros, or anybody that's Cuban, Puerto Rican, Dominican, anybody in the Caribbean. Somebody might say, oye, ese tipo tiene un tumbao raro. That guy has a weird tumbao about him, a weird, cadence about him, rhythm about him, et cetera, et cetera. The music is inexorably tied to the culture. You have to always remember that. One cannot learn any style of music without learning its culture. So the golpe seco is done by me placing my left hand, in this case, with the palm down on the drum, the fingers up, the thumb is resting, and with these 4 fingers, I grab. So coming down, it's like an L, and then all of a sudden it closes. The best way to describe it is make believe there's a fly there, and you're trying to swat it, okay? And this is a type of slap that we use to keep time. There are other types of slaps. For example, an open slap, like that. You notice I'm using the tips of the fingers and releasing, and we get this high-pitched sound. Or a closed slap. That in conjunction with my palm gives us a very dry golpe seco, dry stroke, and it's the stroke that we use to keep time. This was really developed in the late 1950s by drummers in Cuba like Tata Guines, a Cuban American here, Papi Cadavieco, and it's been carried on by great drummers in New York City, like the great New York Puerto Rican Ray Barreto, Eddie Montalvo, Frankie Malavé, Papo Pepin, and many, many, many others. You'll notice on salsa recordings, the golpe seco is very, very important as a timekeeping device. So, and then the final stroke that I'm going to show you, there are many others, but these are the 4 basic ones, is an open stroke, an open tone. Notice, I just form an L, and this meaty part of the hand is striking the drum, and the fingers are bouncing off. I keep that L, I want to keep my fingers together, because if I play like that, the sound will be weak and tinny. But now it's nice and full. Because I have the mouth of the drum open at the bottom, we get a nice full sound. Another important thing, the most important thing, is the seat, your position on the seat. You have to sit as close to the edge of the seat as possible. The great Charlie Persip many times has said, what is the most important part of the drum set? And people start saying, the snare drum, the bass drum, etc., whatever. And he goes, nope, nope. The most important part is the seat, how you sit, where you position yourself. Same thing when playing percussion when you're sitting down.